Well, hello everybody, it's David Bach. I can't believe this, doing a live book signing right now, New York City, Eastern Standard Time. Welcome to my apartment. I am here with the incredible host, Bobby Rebell, who wrote the amazing book, How to Be a Financial Grown-Up.
Amazing because it quotes you.
Well,
it
thank you.
Cites you and your wisdom, which we can talk about later.
So it's so good to have you here. I appreciate you coming over.
Thank you for having me. I literally could not write a book without crediting David Bach for some of his many, many wise pieces of advice that he's given people over the years. So I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm thrilled that I got to meet you through the course of my becoming an author.
I know, it's amazing, and we just had a great time doing a show together recently, so you're so great to be here, and we're so excited to have you here with us. What we're doing, in case you have no idea what's going on, you just happen to show up on Facebook, is that we're doing a live book signing. Instead of going to a bookstore, traveling all over the country, we thought we'd do a book signing where people could come all over the world and buy a book. I'm gonna autograph them right now, and we're going to take your questions. So I'm here talking today about, obviously, the new edition of the Automatic Millionaire. This book just came back out. It's been expanded, updated. I've completely updated it for the times. The last time this book was updated was 10 years ago. I put this book out originally. We launched it on the Oprah Winfrey Show. Over 1.5 million copies. It's been the #1 book around the world for a long, long time in many places. #1 New York Times, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Business Week. It's helped so many of you.
It's been #1 on Amazon.
#1 on Amazon, true. And I'm just really grateful to be here. So we have like 100 questions that already come in. We're going to jump into questions, and many of you, actually, a couple of you, we're going to give a phone call to. So let's go. Should we do that?
I love the first question. The first question is from Sate. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. From Glendale, California. What is the #1 secret to being a millionaire?
So interesting. Interesting that that's the question, because we got to look at them and I didn't know that would be the first one. That's what led to me writing.
I got to choose the question.
That's actually what led me to writing this book, because I wrote Smart Women Finish Rich, Smart Couples Finish Rich, and the Finish Rich Workbook. And I would go all over the country and I would do these speeches, and those are really full-blown financial planning books that I had originally written for my clients when I was at Morgan Stanley. And I would do these talks and people would say, I don't want to know everything. Like, I don't want to know about insurance and wills, and I don't want this comprehensive book. Just tell me the one thing.
Right.
And so I would find myself, Bobby, telling people over and over again this one thing. And the one thing was, well, 3 words. Pay yourself first and make it automatic. So that was an extra word. And the key was that the way to become a millionaire is you pay yourself first automatically. You don't use a budget and you don't use discipline. And I saw that working in the real world as a financial planner at Morgan Stanley. I had hundreds of clients who had ordinary incomes where they had worked over 20, 30, 40 years, and they had come into my office able to retire, and many of them were millionaires or multimillionaires. And the single thing that they all did was they paid themselves first automatically.
Right.
And so what I did with this book was go through not just how to pay yourself first automatically, but how to put your entire financial life on autopilot. Because there's actually 7 areas of your life that you need to put on autopilot.
Right.
And so in this book, we've got a new blueprint. The last chapter of the book is what I call the Automatic Millionaire Blueprint. Lays out for you these 7 specific places to automate your entire financial life.
And what's different here also is the times have really changed. In the last 10 years, there's so much new technology that can make this so much easier. I mean, what used to be hours can be maybe less than an hour now, a lot of these things.
When I'm back in my days as a financial advisor, early in my career, we're talking like 1993, 1994 here, we would talk about systematic investment plans. And if you came into my office, we would open up an automatic investment plan, and we could have money transferred from your account into an investment account. The paperwork was often 3, 4, 5, 6 pages long. Today, you can put your financial life on autopilot in less than an hour. You can open up online investment accounts now in less than 10 minutes. Some companies are even saying that you can do it in 5. In the book, in the Automatic Millionaire book now, I give a lot of the new companies. So I talk about companies like, examples, Acorns.
Right, you're very specific, which is
very
helpful.
specific. I go through companies like Acorns, and there's a company called Stash, Betterment, Wealthfront. All the new apps and all the new technologies that make investing automatically with very small amounts of money very easy.
And by the way, let's just pause before we take the next question. If you're watching this, go to livesigning.com, because what you can do is you can buy the book now live during the show, and David will send you an autographed copy. So that's part of what we're doing, is you get to do that. You can then, once you buy the book, you can send in your question, which maybe we'll choose. I'm choosing the questions. And then also, we're also going to be calling a few of you. So you could potentially get a phone call. So definitely go to livesigning.com and get your copy of David's book, and he will sign it, and you'll get your signed copy, and maybe you'll get a question.
Yeah, and which I realize I'm supposed to be signing right now. So here I go, I'm signing.
David is a very good multitasker, so don't worry about it. All right, so let's do the next question.
Yeah, let's do it.
The next question, what are your most important bullet points on getting a couple on the same page of lifelong money goals? Because sometimes, you know, money is one of the big things that can really ruin a relationship if you're not on the same page.
It's probably the biggest.
Oh, and that's from Tim in St. Paul, Minnesota.
So Tim in St. Paul, I hope you got your wife watching too. What do you do to get on the same page? So when I wrote Smart Couples Finish Rich, that was really the core issue. How do you get on the same page as a couple? And I'll give you 3 specific things you can do as a couple. Number 1, agree on an amount that you're going to pay yourself first as a couple. So like, let's say it's 1 hour a day of your income. Sitting down as a couple and saying, you know what, if we're both going to be working full time, that means between the 2 of them, you're going to work 4,000 hours this year. Okay, that's a lot of hours, right? So what I would suggest is you guys sit down together and you go, look, we have to put ourselves first. Let's agree on how much we will save automatically. Even if it's only 30 minutes a day, let's agree on that. And get that money automatically moving into your retirement account if you're both working using a 401k plan. Start there. The second thing I would do is agree on an emergency account. I would recommend, again, another half an hour a day of your income, so you're putting money in an emergency account. And the third thing I would say to you is if you've got kids and you're married, which sounds like you are, then you should agree on something super simple, and that's to protect your family. And that includes getting a will. So you actually go and get a will done. You can use an inexpensive, software program online if that's all you can afford, or go meet with an attorney and get a will done, because that's really critical. And I would get life insurance. But I would buy the cheapest form of insurance you can get in the beginning. Get yourself a term policy. So if you've got kids, term insurance has never been cheaper. You can pick up $500,000 to $1 million in term insurance. I don't know how old this person was.
They didn't say.
But in some cases, for $50 to $100 a month, you can buy a cheap term policy, get a level term policy that covers the time that your kids need to be protected. Those tend to be things that couples can agree on. I've seen couples fight about money, but they don't fight about whether or not they should have an insurance policy that's inexpensive to protect the kids in case something happens to one of the 2 of you. And then Smart Couples Finish Rich happens to be also a great book to read, because I go through everything. How to go through your values together as a couple, how to go through your dreams, and how to get your financial life totally organized, from your file folders to all your documents. And I give you homework assignments in that book. So that's a great tool too.
All right, you're supposed to be signing.
Oh, sorry.
Keep signing.
Okay, keep going.
Okay. All right, this one I really like. A lot of people, I think, will relate to this. How can I convince my mother that it's not too late for her to start? I've given her your book, Start Late, Finish Rich, but she won't read it because she's 60 and she thinks it's too late for her. And that is from Megan in Monroe, Louisiana. So thank you, Megan, for your question.
Mom, Megan from Monroe, Louisiana. You didn't tell us what your mom's name was, or we'd be talking to you right now, Mom. Mom, first of all, you're 60. Hello. You're going to live to be 100, 110, 115 at this point in age. So you are not old. You are, 60 is the new 40, as they say, which I'm glad to hear now, because I'm getting up in age now. Not 60, but 50. What can I tell you? 60 really is the new 40. It is the new 50. You've got a long time ahead of you. My grandma Bach, who was my inspiration, who taught me how to invest, who helped me buy my first stock at age 7 at McDonald's, she was investing at 86 and she was buying growth stocks, okay? It's never too late. My grandmother actually made the bulk of her fortune after the age of 65. And ironically, it's because some of her best investments came after the age of 65. And a really funny story is that my grandmother, she did a great job of saving all of her lifetime. She moved to Leisure World, California. She was in a bridge club. She got one of her best stock ideas from, I think it was her bridge club. And one of her friends took a little hardware store company public in the bridge club. And she asked my dad about that little hardware store. And my dad said there was nothing sexy about hardware stores. And my dad didn't buy it for her, and then that stock started going up, and she said, buy me that hardware store. And thank God she did, because that little hardware store turned out to be Home Depot. And my grandmother, who didn't start investing until much later in life, she started at 30, but her big investments came after the age of 60. So you tell your mom it's never too late. David Bach said she needs to get started today.
All right, and just a reminder to anyone watching, go to livesigning.com if you're not already there. If you buy a book, you can send in a question, either email us, or it's right on the page, and then we're going to be selecting a few phone calls as well. All right, let's go to the next question while you sign books. It is clear that you see your message as a spiritual calling for you. By the way, this is from Dan in Franklin, Tennessee. How can readers stay focused on their own spiritual calling and not just get caught up in the mathematical pursuit of being wealthy? I like that question a lot.
Ooh, I like that question a lot too.
It's not about the money. It's about more.
So since I got asked a spiritual question, I'm always careful about how to go about proactively bringing out spiritual conversations. But since I got asked the question, I'll answer the question. I believe that everybody was put here for a reason. I believe that there's a higher power, and I really believe that inside each and every single one of you that's watching right now, that you've been given a gift. That's what I believe in my heart and my soul. And I think that the number one thing that holds people back from using that gift that comes from a higher power, and you can call it a spiritual calling, I think the number one thing that holds people back is actually financial difficulties. So I think that the reason so many people don't pursue their dreams, don't pursue their passions, don't pursue their purpose, and don't use their God-given talents is because they're struggling paycheck to paycheck. And so I believe, and I think that that's why I was put here, is I think part of the reason I was put here was to try to free people to tap into their talents and tap into their higher purpose. And I think that when you fix your finances, you free yourself to go live your higher calling. So yeah, that was you can tell I feel strongly about this. It's not just about the money. In fact, it's about so much more than the money. Money is just a tool. Money is just a tool to free you to live your highest and best life. And what I really feel so strongly about is that if you can get clear about your values and what matters most to you, that all the roadblocks that can hold you back from going for your financial dreams and doing all the work that you have to do, because let's face it, you have to do a lot of stuff. You can't just sit on the couch and get rich. You can't just sit on the couch and get out of debt. You have to actually do a lot of work. My son's over on the couch going, I'm sitting over here. You got to do a lot of work, but if you're clear on your values and you're clear on your purpose, then you can become mission focused, and it's cool. And if you're not turned on by money, it's also still cool. Like I always tell people, you don't have to be really into personal finance to go and get a book like The Automatic Millionaire, read it in 90 minutes and put this placement plan in less than an hour, stop worrying about money, go back to your life. What most of you should do is spend very little time on your money. The Automatic Millionaire book is about putting your financial life on autopilot so you can go then get back to your life, because that's where it's all really happening.
Yeah, and actually it's interesting, the younger generation, the millennials, are really focused a lot on living their life and not being so bogged down in material goods. They're not buying as much stuff, they're focusing on living and experiences. So I think that's been a good trend.
I think I think it has been a good trend. I'm a huge, my whole reason, purpose for putting this book out was to reach millennials. Because we got to get the millennials saving and investing, because you guys need the same opportunity that we have. Right. And candidly, that unless you get going, you're not. So that's really why I wanted to put the Automatic Millionaire book out, was to go get the next generation. I'm
going to interject my own question. So what do you say to millennials that maybe got out of college with a lot of debt and they say, well, I can't focus on retirement until I clear my student debt? What do you do in that situation?
What you do is, first of all, don't believe that. Don't believe that you should pay your student loans off before you start investing in yourself. The most important investment is in yourself when you get out of school. It is in growing your career and growing your entrepreneurial business if you're starting one. It is in paying yourself first. Those student loans, especially at a low interest rate, you don't need to rush to pay those off. You need to be paying yourself first and focusing on taking that opportunity when you're in your 20s to go grow your talents and invest in yourself.
All right, we have a phone call from Tim, so let's bring in the phone.
Woo!
Meridian has the phone.
Thank you.
So we're going to put
so
it near
is Tim on speakerphone?
Yes.
Hey Tim, how are you?
I'm doing very well, David. I'm doing very well.
Hi, Tim.
Thanks for taking our call.
Well, you know, this is really cool. So like, you know, I think a lot of times people email me. They don't think I'm going to read the emails. They don't believe I'm going to actually see these things. You were kind enough to email me the other day and share a pretty cool success story. So tell me what's happened to you. Give me your background.
So, quick background on my wife and I. 14 years ago, when we got married, Smart Couples Finish Rich was given to us for a wedding gift. And I kind of dove right into it during our honeymoon. And the baseline principles really kind of made sense and resonated with us. Both of us come from modest backgrounds with our parents being educators. And so some of the concepts and thoughts and knowledge that we'd never heard before. And so that really just kind of sparked our interest and really kind of got us excited and at the possibilities of what some things could look like. And we kind of got on the same page and drove forward. And then the email you're referring to was reading The Automatic Millionaire 14 years later, sitting on the beach in Maui with the family and feeling very confident with, you know, over $500,000 in mutual funds and a Husky savings account and a full-time wife at home and working towards paying off our home and debt-free, and just feeling very grateful for the knowledge that you shared with us 14 years ago through your book. So that was our...
Wow. Well, I got chills when I read your email, and I couldn't believe you were emailing me from the beach on vacation in Hawaii. Tell me again, first of all, you've got over $500,000 in savings. You've done this all in 14 years. And it's funny because we had a question before we called you from another couple asking how to get on the same page. What was it that triggered you and your wife to get motivated, get on the same page, and then take action? Was there something that really happened that you're like, okay, we have to go do this? And what do you think is the most important thing you did?
Well, I think that there was a few things. There's two main points that we kind of took away from it. One was just knowing that if we want to be successful as a couple, that we needed to be successful financially as a couple. We kind of took that away just from the very beginning of the book, and just knowing that our future was going to be together and that we wanted to have those goals and dreams together. So that was kind of the first part. But the part that probably really got us to take action was understanding really the Latte Factor and what that difference was. That message really resonated and kind of hit home, and it made sense to both of us to say, okay, you know, we can do this and we can get traction. And that was really kind of what got us focused and going, was both when we were talking about the Latte Factor, it made sense, and then we started just doing it and watching it and dialing in our program.
Wow. I'm so glad you just shared that with me. I'll tell you, I've been talking about the Latte Factor now for nearly 20 years. In fact, Bobby, yes, here, you're going to get
That's the reason that David is in my book, because I couldn't write the book without talking about the Latte Factor. You're going to get a copy
of Bobby. You can't see her right now unless you're watching us live, but she wrote this great book called How to Be a Financial Grown-Up, and she talked about the Latte Factor in her book, and I'm going to send you one of her books too. But a lot of people, criticize the Latte Factor now. They say that, nobody wants to give up their coffees, and I always say it's just a metaphor. And yet so many people like you tell me that that's what really triggered them to make the change in their life. And the fact that you're sitting here on the phone with me 14 years later and you have over $500,000 in savings. How old are you guys right now?
They're 38.
Oh, we just turned 38.
You're 38. So there's no question that by the time you're 50, you're going to be a multimillionaire. I mean, that's just incredible. I really appreciate you calling us. And I really, Tim, thank you for your letter. And, as I told you, I want to start doing a podcast with success stories like yourself. So we'll follow back up with you later. I'll send you a copy of the autographed book from me, and Bobby will sign a book for you too. But thank you so much for being a part of our show today. This was really cool to talk to you and say hello.
It's very cool, very cool. And again, thank you so much. And we appreciate the chance to be able to talk with you. And again, appreciate the knowledge you've shared. So this is fantastic.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Have a great night. Good being with you. Bye-bye.
Bye. We should say mahalo.
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 I don't know if he's still in Hawaii. I think he's from Oregon.
Oh, okay. We're in the spirit of Hawaii.
So,
how
cool is that, by the way?
I know. You literally changed his life. So maybe we broke some news here that David's going to do a podcast. I don't know. I think it's important that people understand the Latte Factor became this cultural thing, but it's often taken out of context. So that's part of why you don't want to just hear David in an interview. You want to read the whole book, because then you can understand the context of what he's saying. It's not really about the latte. It's about the little things that add up that we don't realize that we're buying. And if we just cut out something or be mindful of what we're doing day to day, we can put aside the right amount of money to get started on our way to having financial freedom, which is really what it's about.
I mean, it's a metaphor for thinking about where we spend our money. And what happens with our money is that there's a war for our money, right? So we trade 2,000 hours of our time a year for money.
God, that sounds so
and everybody in the world is fighting to keep our cash. And so, whether it's literally, it is Starbucks or it's, God bless Apple, but like there must be $10,000 worth of Apple equipment sitting around this house right now. Whatever it is, bottled water, it's cigarettes, it's everything that you can imagine. Someone else has a plan for your paycheck right now, and the Latte Factor is about consciously going, wait a minute, I need to keep some of my money. And by the way, $5, $10, $15, $20 a day can change your whole life.
Oh yeah, it adds up, absolutely. So that's why I had to mention it in How to Be a Financial Grown-Up, because it was important that we talk about how important the Latte Factor is, and then more. That's the beginning, and then you add to it, and there's great tips in there. Let's go to another question, sticking with the couples theme, but a little bit of a different twist here. How does a woman ask a man she wants to marry? I know, you're getting a little squeamish already, David, because I'm not sure you wanted me to ask
She
this.
wants to marry.
I think that people relate to this question. There's a lot of people that want to know. This is from Amy in Woodside, New York, by the way. How does a woman ask a man she wants to marry to sign a prenup when she has older parents to care for? Is worth over $1 million between her real estate, savings, investments, and a possible book deal on a project
is that
to be
right?
completed? Yes. Competition, David.
What's her name?
This is Amy from Woodside, New York. So she feels a little guilty. She knows she has to do this. What does she do?
Amy, don't feel guilty. Be a financial grown-up.
Thank you for the plug, David.
Don't feel guilty. First of all, men have been doing this for years. And now ladies, because you're making the big bucks,
That's a good point.
You're starting to do it. Talking about a prenuptial agreement sucks. It's not fun. I've been there. And it's part of life. And it's very expensive to get divorced. And you know what? I don't have to give you the divorce statistics. It's very expensive to get divorced. And a prenuptial agreement's a contract, and a marriage is a contract. And I gotta tell you something, it's really simple. You should get one. If your assets are completely disproportionate, or even if they're not disproportionate, putting down in paper on a document what's yours is yours and what's his is his, and how these assets are gonna get divided, I'd do it. And if you start finding out that that's a real problem for him, then you got to go and really take a look at why is it really a problem for him.
The other thing is that sometimes when you go through the process of doing a prenup with somebody, you learn things about them that you maybe should have known that might not have come up. And I think that's an important part in getting married. A lot of times we don't have premarital counseling in this world anymore. And this is the biggest financial decision that you're going to make in your life. So I think it's important that you do what's right for you ahead of time. All right, let's move on. Okay, much simpler question. No emotion in this one. Would you recommend buying a new car with 0% financing and a great discount, the Ford A plan, or buying an older used car in cash until we can afford new in cash? That's from Jessica in Loveland, Ohio. Thank you, Jessica.
So I hate car questions.
I'm sorry, David. I didn't know that.
No, I hate car questions because I know you want a new car. Everybody wants a new car. First of all, new cars smell so good, and they feel so good. The doors sound nice when you close them. I like new cars. It all depends on how you're going to buy a car. If you've got a business, there can be enormous advantages to leasing a car, because in many cases you can write the whole car off or most of the car off, and you can have a new car, and it's an inexpensive way to have a new car. Okay, that's one exception to the rule. For the most car time, you don't go out and buy new cars, because when you buy a new car and you drive it off the lot, the moment you drive it off the lot, if you just wanted to go around the block and then bring it back and sell it back to them, the car's gone down in value 20, 30, 35%. So there are very few things in the world that you can buy that go down in value that fast. So the best way to buy a car is to buy a car that, if you're gonna buy a car, it's to buy a nice car that is coming off a lease after 2 years or 3 years. Because those cars are basically brand new, and you can buy them for 50 cents on the dollar, sometimes less. You get amazing finance packages on them. Sometimes you can even lease those cars. And there are a lot of great ways to take over leases right now. There's groups like Lease Swap and all kinds of websites now where you can basically swap into somebody else's lease with no money down. I don't like putting down a lot of money on cars. It is a depreciating asset. I want you to put your cash and your investments into things that go up in value, and I want you to rent things that go down in value.
Okay, let's go to Dana in Forney, Texas. This is a tough one. I'm going to give you a really tough one. We're going to challenge David here. I am 52 and my husband is 55. We have very little in retirement. Together we have $500,000 in student loan debt and bad credit. I am learning about long-term investing, paying yourself, etc. I'm determined to fix our situation and finish rich and to help others. Suggestions. That's a challenge, David.
Whoa. Are you sure you're actually reading that right?
That is, yes, that is typed. Now, it's possible there's a typo.
Let me see this.
But,
I just have to...
Yeah.
So for you to have $500,000 in student loans at the age of 52, then you've got to be a doctor or an attorney would be my guess. I mean,
maybe it's compounding.
I can only imagine that you've gone to graduate school, and I can only imagine that you actually have a high income career. I've never seen that much student loans from anybody else other than a doctor or an attorney or somebody who's gotten a PhD.
And it's combined, so in theory,
and it's combined. So if you have that much student loan, then I would hope that you're in a high income bracket. I would also hope that those loans are on a low interest rate possible loan. I mean, the student loans typically are 6% or less. You can run those loans out a long time. It sounds like you guys have. You need to go get yourself in front of a financial planner. This is a really specific question. I think you need to meet with a financial planner. You've got to be paying yourself first. You have to be investing for the long term, but don't let those student loans prevent you from investing for the long term. It really comes down to what your income is.
Can they negotiate them? Can they go to the creditors and maybe say, look, this is the situation?
On student loans?
I don't know. I mean,
I don't know who your student loans are from, but one of the beauties of student loans, and it's not beautiful at all, is that it's virtually impossible to get out from underneath student loans. Until we change that situation with the government, right now you can go bankrupt and not get out of your student loans. So that's one of the problems with student loans, and we have over $1 trillion in this country with them. I'd go meet with a financial planner. I think you need to go find yourself a fiduciary. I'd sit down with somebody, really go through your financial planning situation. But you know what? I'd start by reading this book, because this book's going to at least lay out the tips for you on what you need to do to get the 7 basic things set up to automate your financial life. That will help you get going at least in the right track on that. And I cover how to get out of debt, but I don't cover how to get out of $500,000 in student loan debt.
At that age too.
Yeah.
It's scary. So I think the important thing here, especially if you're younger and you're watching, maybe if you're going into college or thinking about graduate school, think carefully about getting those loans. Because if you really can manage, maybe not getting too much debt in school, working more, but I don't know, different choices. Don't get into so much debt.
But we also don't know, because we're not talking them live.
Right. We don't know.
I know people who are doctors who make $1 million a year, who have $250,000 in student loans, and they have no problem servicing the debt.
Right.
So this may not be a big problem for you as it might be for someone else. And what you should know is just don't put off buying a home and investing, waiting to pay the student loans off first.
All right. I want to take a question related to the younger generation now. My son, from Margaret in San Ramon, California. My son recently graduated from college and started his first job. What are the 3 most important financial decisions he should make as he starts his professional career? Thank you.
Okay, San Ramon has to be right next door to where my parents are. I bet my mom's watching. She's in Danville. Hi, Mom, if you are watching. Is my mom watching? Is she commenting? All right, 3 things. First of all, your kid's getting out of college, make him read this book, because this is the starter guide for anybody getting out of college. All he has to do is read this book and follow the plan. First thing he's going to do is, if he gets a job with his 401k plan, he needs to pay himself first 1 hour a day of his income. Literally, sit down and go, you need to pay yourself first 1 hour a day of your income. That's going to be 12.5% of his gross income. At a minimum, if you can get him to sign up for 10% of his 401k plan, so that money's taken right off the top, he will be in better financial shape than any of his friends. The second thing, he needs to make sure he's on top of his credit score. So if he hasn't pulled his credit score, he should pull his credit score. And you need to talk to him about the importance of paying his bills on time, because his FICO credit score is going to determine his ability to borrow money the rest of his life. He needs to know how credit scores work, understand that. I cover that in the Automatic Millionaire. And I also talk about how to get out of credit card debt in this book. Third thing he needs to do is buy a home. and he needs to know that his goal should be to buy a home younger than most of his friends will. I bought my first home in Danville, California at 165 Gil Blas. I bought the house with my best friend like a year out of college, total fixer-upper, split the down payment, rented bedrooms to buddies, and fixed the home up ourselves. That's how I bought my first piece of real estate in Danville. So I'd tell your son the way pay themselves first, stay on top of his credit, and buy real estate, then he's going to be rich.
What gave you the idea to do that? Because it is unusual to do that. You really ran it not only as owning it, but as a business. Yeah,
well, I mean, first of all, we needed to, right? Like, we didn't have enough money. We had enough money scraped together to put a 10% down payment, and we knew we needed help to cover our mortgage payments. Right. But we were entrepreneurs. I wanted to be wealthy at a young age. I think the way you build wealth over your lifetime is you start when you're young. And I was reading these books and taking these classes and wanting to do this at a young age.
It's important. I bought my first home at 23, which I talk about in my book, plugging my book again. But I've been able to flip that home.
How to be a financial grown-up.
He's great. But I've been able to flip the home a couple times, and now I have a family-size home here in New York City, and that's how I can live in New York City.
Which means she has a home that's worth millions and millions of dollars.
I'm very happy with my home. And I'm very happy with my husband, who also works very hard. So we work teamwork.
Good plug for the husband.
Plugging my husband, who works very hard so we can also afford the home. But the base of the home came from starting home ownership at age 23. I mean, that's really the key, is to do that, get into the real estate market, not be a renter. And the amount that I've spent in, mortgage and taxes, which is your main, instead of rent, is generally less than a rent payment, and then you get the tax deductibility. So it's really a win-win. Even if your property doesn't appreciate.
I'm just like you. I bought my first home in my 20s. I think I've had 4 or 5 homes. They've all rolled into the next home. I live in a home right now that's basically doubled in value in 6 years, and the mortgage is probably half what it would cost to rent this place.
See, there you go. Real estate, very important. All right, I'm going to let you sign for a minute. I'm just going to read a comment of someone that's just a David fan, so he can just take a moment to just sign some books, because we haven't been doing a lot of signing. We got to sign. All right. This is from Aileen in West Sacramento, California, who is clearly a big David Bach fan. She says, I do not have a question, but I would like to take this opportunity to thank David for his Automatic Millionaire book. Over 5 years ago, I had a setback in life where I got divorced and had to struggle in almost all areas of my life. I grabbed every book on financial and self-help and happened to read your book, David.
Wow.
There are action steps that I was able to implement right away, some gradually and others had to wait. Since my divorce, I have been a single mom for my 2 boys, and I wanted you to know that your book is such a great blessing to me. I have automated my finances, including giving and charity, which is a nice point that she brings up, and just recently started to build my emergency and dream funds. Not only that, part of my goal this year is to buy our own home. See, very on topic there. Thank you so much for your dedication and hard work. I wish you more success and joy as you inspire many more readers, especially women. And that was your first book. Your first book was really for women.
Smart Women Finish Rich, yeah. Thank you. That was really touching. I really appreciate that.
All right, thank you. That was Aileen. So thank you,
Aileen. You're awesome.
All right. Good question here from Samuel in O'Fallon, Illinois. Do you believe in budgets? What about good stewardship? I will put it on the screen there for you.
Do I believe in budgets? What about what about good stewardship? So I don't like budgets, and the reason I don't like budgets is that I've seen in the real world that they just don't work. When the few people who try to go on a budget, they can't stick to them. It's like a diet, right? Like
it's like a diet.
They say most people go off diets by the 3rd week of January. Budgeting leads to lots of fights. In fact, I tell the story in the Automatic Millionaire book about the couple, Jim and Sue McIntyre, who really taught me their system here. And they talked about how in the first year of their marriage, they tried to budget, and in trying to budget, they fought all the time. And in fact, they went and talked to their parents, and their parents were like, yeah, don't do that budgeting thing. That doesn't work. The only thing that works is saving money automatically. So I don't recommend budgeting. Now, when I say don't budget, that assumes that you're going to automatically have money moved into all the right areas, and it assumes that you're tracking where all the money's going. And so I go through in the Automatic Millionaire, things like mint.com, knowing where all the money's going, that both of you come together and review where all the finances are. It's not just spend, but it's not trying to budget so that you can then save. It's saving first, and the budget comes on the back end.
Well, it kind of reminds me of, I don't know if this happens in most of the country, but here in New York City, the chain restaurants had to put the calories on their foods a couple of years ago. And so just like you're talking about with Mint, when you actually see how much it's going to cost you in calories, or see in your Mint account what's going on with your money, it's going to come naturally because you kind of know what you can spend and what you can't spend. So it's going to evolve. It's there for you.
That's a great analogy. I like that.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a phone call.
Barry, okay.
Barry from Las Vegas. And so Barry, you're also going to get a free copy of my book.
Hey, Barry.
David, may the blessings of heaven open up and pour out on you and yours.
Thank you.
My question was, do you pay off debt first or do you pay yourself first? Reason why I ask is that the wife and I were both state workers, and we were clobbered in 2008 for 6 years with no pay increases, furloughs, pay cuts, increased medical, whatnot. And so right now we're behind the proverbial 8 ball trying to pay off student loans, credit card debts, the whole 9 yards. We're both 57, and it's like, what do we do?
What order do we do it in? Okay, so I get asked this question a lot. In fact, I got asked this exact question when we launched this book on Oprah. And I recommend something that you don't hear a lot of experts say. A lot of experts will be out there telling you pay off your debt first and then save. I don't recommend that, because what I see in the real world is that when people do that, first of all, they get depressed because it's depressing just paying off debt. And then they also don't ever, years go by and they don't get around to saving. So I would actually do both. And I'll give you an example of numbers. Like if I had $1,000, I'd try to put $500 towards the debt and $500 towards savings. Now the key is with the debt is you have to prioritize which debts you're going to pay off in what order. So have you read The Automatic Millionaire yet, or are you just getting the book for the first time?
No, I've read it before, but I wanted to get the updated edition.
Okay, so like in The Automatic Millionaire, I go through that system DOLP, which stands for done on last payment. How many credit cards do you have?
2.
Okay, so whatever the credit cards are, I'd pay the smallest one off first. I'd make equal payments on both cards, but I'd pay off the smallest one first. I'd make extra payments on the smallest one first. My son is showing me this. He's got this big thing saying in front, pay yourself first. Yes, I know. I would divide the money between paying yourself first and paying down your debts. The student loan debts, if the rates are low, I would prioritize those third. I'd pay the credit card debts off first and the student loan debts off after that. But you got to stay.
Student loans are a little bit higher than the credit card debts together. And like I said, 14.5% of our pay comes out for our pension.
Okay, so what's your rate on your student loans?
I believe my wife's student loans are at 2.25%.
Oh my God, that's so cheap. See, so that's cheap debt. So I keep cranking with the pay yourself first, and I'd be paying minimums on the student loans, maybe just a little bit extra. If you just double down on those payments on your loans, like let's say it's $200 and you add $200 more to those payments each month, if you can do that, you can have them run an amortization schedule that shows you how much faster those debts will get paid off. And that'll just give you a way to kind of like really look at the math to figure out how much faster can you get out of those debts. Do you guys also have a mortgage?
Yeah, we're 8 years into a 30-year mortgage.
Okay, and so you got a 30-year fixed rate?
Yeah, 4.25%.
So that's really great, right? Low too. So I would do a bi-weekly, I would go back again, Automatic Millionaire book. I'd go do a bi-weekly mortgage payment on the 23-year mortgage, because you'll pay that 23-year mortgage off probably 3.5 years earlier. And that'll also probably, how big is your mortgage right now?
Off the top of my head, I want to say about 155.
All right, so that'll probably save you, I'm just doing this in my head, but I bet you it saves you 15 grand just doing that. I go run the calculation on that.
Okay, no, it's definitely a great idea.
Cool. Listen, I really appreciate you calling in, and you know what? It sounds to me like you're actually in really good shape. So congratulations to where you are. Keep it up and stay in touch. Let me know how you end up doing.
Thank you, David. I appreciate it very much.
All right, have a great day. I'm glad you called in. Be well. Thanks for getting a book too. Bye-bye.
Yeah. And we're going to send you one of my books as well.
How to Be a Financial Grown-Up from Bobby.
With assistance from David.
Have a great day. Thanks a lot.
By the way, just a reminder, some of you are watching us other places because we're streaming a few places, but go to livesigning.com and get a copy of Dave's book, because then you can write in with some questions. I think we have about 15 minutes left, so do it right away. And we're selecting questions from people that can submit it through livesigning.com. And we're also maybe we're going to do one more phone call. Yes, I'm getting the nod. We are going to do one more phone call. So get your book, get your information into us, and you may get a phone call from David Bach in the next 15 minutes. So we'll see. So the next question I chose specifically because this is something that would not have come up in the earlier editions of your book. And it is from Rob in Hilliard, Ohio. And he asks, what is your opinion on apps such as Acorns that invest your spare change automatically? This didn't exist before.
Did not exist. Okay, so what Acorns does, Acorns is an app and a financial service company that helps you invest small amounts of money. You can start investing with as little as $5. It invested in a robo account of ETFs, so it builds a whole diversified portfolio. Then you can also attach it to your credit cards and to your checking accounts, and it will round up your small change. So if you spend $9.50, it'll take the 50 cents that you didn't spend, and then it'll round it up and put it into your investment account. Like an automated Latte Factor machine helping you save money into an investment account. So I love it. When I saw this company, what they were doing, it reminded me of a product that I had been involved in with Bank of America called Keep the Change, which was a automatic, similar concept for just putting it into a checking account. What Acorns has done is just incredible. I was so blown away by what they did. I got on a plane, flew out to Irvine, met with the founder of the company. First I beta tested it, opened an account myself. I've actually invested in the company. I invested in their last the C round alongside PayPal. So I'm a private investor in Acorns. So I love it. I love what they're doing. I think it's super cool. They've opened up, I think now we're up to like 1.4 million new accounts in 2 years. This is going to be the future, especially for young people and millennials. Now, they're not the only player out there. So the Latte, I've got lots of these companies in there. There's another company called Stash. There are robo-advisors out there like Betterment, Wealthfront, Next Capital, Personal Capital. There's just so many great new companies. But I'm super turned on by Acorns. I think what they're doing is really, really special. And it's gonna make the biggest thing with the Latte Factor is people are like, well, how do I do this? Like, right. I know I'm supposed to take my change, but like, how do I get the change?
It does it for you automatically.
Invested. And none of the brokerage firms wanted to work with these small accounts. And now with technology, my iPhone's sitting over there, but I opened up an account on Acorns in less than 10 minutes. Literally, it was like click, 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 and it was done. And that's kind of like, that's where the world's changing.
It is. All right, sign books. I'm going to read a compliment quickly while you sign some books. This is from George in Orem, Utah. No question, but I've known David for many years, and I've given his book to several of my friends and had my kids read it as well. Great content and a simple, easy, effective read worth 100 times the cost of the book. And the book is a great price, by the way.
Wow.
I think it's only $15, which is an amazing deal, actually. So pretty cool. Okay. Let's go to Sarah in Burbank, California. Start late, finish rich. We are starting now at 47 and 56 respectively. How can we stay positive when our peers are already retiring and we are just beginning? You can't turn the clock back, so.
Well, you can't, you're right, you can't turn.
We all wish we could. Maybe a little, maybe not too much.
2007, what did you say, 47 years old?
Yeah.
47 is young.
But 56 respectively.
47, 56,
yeah.
Look, let's be honest. If your friends are retiring right around you and you haven't started saving, that can be painful. Get some new friends. No, I think it's not too late. You just need to get going. I actually wrote Start Late, Finish Rich, that book specifically for people over the age of 45, just like you. That is a great book. I would tell you to take a class I've got coming up. I am teaching a class on January 19th at Create It Live. You can go to davidbach.com. The class is going to be free all day long. It's on createitlive.com. Start Late, Finish Rich is the class. I'm teaching it January 19th. It's all day long. It's free. And it's about how to start late and finish rich. But you just need to get started. So if you are really behind, you need to know it's not too late. You can make it automatic, but you got to ramp up the savings. And you got to ramp up the seriousness. Like, I'm going to go back and give her one more plug. At 47 and 46, It's when you have to go, okay, it's financial grown-up time. And hopefully you've got the kids that are getting older, and maybe costs with the kids might even be going down a little bit unless they're going off to college, I don't know. But college is important, but your retirement plan is more important. I tell parents this: do not give up your retirement plan for the college plan, okay? The best gift you can give your kids is not having to sleep on their couch. So I didn't even hear if you have kids, but if you
didn't say.
I think know this, it's not too late. Lots of people have read my books and started in their 40s and their 50s and their 60s and caught up. So don't give up. Don't give up hope.
And one thing that's important to also remember, when young people say it's so hard to save, and when people in their 50s say it's so hard to save, in a way the hardest time is your 30s and 40s in theory, because that's when you have kids and all that overhead with the kids. So think about what you don't have on your plate anymore if you did have kids, and maybe you do have more disposable income than you did, and it is a little bit easier. It's tough when you have kids and all the bills that come with them. It can be really hard. So
we find when you look at statistics that actually people's highest earning years are between the age of 45 and 55 often, or 45 to 60 even. So you may be in your prime earning years right now, and this is your golden time now to catch up, and you can catch up in 10 years. People underestimate what they can accomplish in a decade. I always say, people create these. We're here in January, and people create these big goals for the year, and they get so obsessed with what they're going to get done in a year. And I go, look, give yourself some breathing room here. Work on a decade-long plan, because if you give yourself a decade, I promise you, you can change your whole financial life in a decade, and you can catch up.
And speaking of catch-up, there's catch-up plans. If you're at a place with 401ks and you have an IRA, there's catch-ups. You can actually save more in those plans, right?
Specifically, there's catch-up plans, so that the government allows you to save, upwards, like it's $18,000 is the max in a 401k plan, but it's $23,500, I think, now if you're over the age of 50, which that's just even more money you can put away and not pay taxes on.
Yeah, and obviously use every penny you can, matching all that stuff at school, at companies. From Diana in Riverside, California, is it possible to become a millionaire if you run a nonprofit organization? What can I do differently?
Interesting question. It doesn't matter. I know a lot. I mean, a lot of people who run nonprofit organizations who happen to be
I work in media. That
millionaires.
Can be nonprofit. You missed my joke.
Yeah, no, I got that. I got that. It all depends on what you're doing in the media, right?
Exactly.
Like, what's our name's friend? Megan Kelly just got herself a great, great deal.
I was actually referencing the broader media business in general. But anyway.
Nonprofit doesn't mean you have to be poor. I know people who do very well in nonprofit, but I also do know people who really recognize that when they go into nonprofit, they're going to earn less money. Sometimes they earn 50 cents on the dollar that they would have made in a different company. Sometimes it's even less, but you get a lot of spiritual rewards from being a nonprofit. So if you go to work for a nonprofit where you just know you're going to make less money, then you have to come up with other things that you can do, either to have a side hustle to make some money on the side, or you're actually making lifestyle choices and lifestyle changes. It's not, sometimes you can't actually get it all. But I know a lot of people who work for nonprofits that are so rewarded by the nonprofit work they do, they're okay with the fact that they're earning less. In fact, they're happy, or happier. I've seen people leave private corporate America to go work for nonprofits and take 70% pay cuts and be 10 times happier. And that's a really important thing to know.
And I like the point that you talk about side hustles, because that's something that can be really rewarding. Side hustle is very different from just a second job. It's something that you enjoy. It's something that maybe could give you a safety net if something ever goes wrong with your job. So that's a really good point that you make as well, I think. We have a phone call from Ann in Woodland, California.
Oh, we are getting
All right, Meridian's bringing in the phone.
We're so high tech.
Ann.
Hi, Ann. How are you? It's David
calling.
Bach.
Hi, I'm doing great. Thanks for taking my call.
Where are you calling from?
Woodland, California.
Awesome.
Your hometown.
Nice. Well, thanks for being here. What? Tell me what's going on with you. Tell me your story or your question. What can I help you?
Well, my question relates to my teenagers. I have a freshman in college and I have a senior graduating in June. And I really want them to learn how to invest. And my question is, what's your recommendation? Because one, I think I might have a hard time getting them to sit down with a book and look at it for longer than 10 minutes. I'd like them to maybe use the Acorn app or something that you're recommending. What are your thoughts and how do I present that makes it enticing to them. And what do you recommend? Maybe 100, 1,000 for them to get started?
Yeah, these are really good questions. So first of all, I wouldn't assume that your kids won't read the book. And I say that because I can't tell you how many people who've given my books out to their teenagers and then their teenagers email me. I had a friend of mine that I gave my book to, and he gave it to his son, and his son went off to college freshman year, and he said, he's never going to read this book. And I'm like, well, how do you know until you give it to him? And he gave it to him, and then interestingly enough, his son came home for Thanksgiving, sent me a text because he was able to get it from his dad, and said, so I read the book, and now I want to know what kind of account I should open up. Should I actually open up an account at Acorns? And I said, yeah, see, that's because he wanted to literally save $20 a month. He's a freshman in college. I'm like, Acorns is perfect for you. So I think don't assume that they won't be interested. I give them the book and try and just give it to them, see what happens. Second thing is, I think giving them a gift of an investment account is a great gift. My son Jack, who's sitting over here, who's 13, we started him off with a $1,000 investment account, which today I looked at, it's $1,497. And I'm doing with him what my grandmother did with me, which I started talking to him about investing at a really young age, and he's been buying stocks in companies that he's excited about. So it's funny because he bought Amazon. I thought with Amazon, I thought it was a pretty high price. Meanwhile, the stock has doubled. But we've bought things that he's interested in: Amazon, Shake Shack. We bought Gap. I'm trying to think what else you own. You own McDonald's, Disney. So getting your kids talking about investing and saving at a young age can change your life. And I think talking to them about what you're doing. So whatever investing you're doing, explaining it to them. Like my 6-year-old's finally asleep. He's upstairs, but we were away this weekend, and we got into a conversation around. I actually explained the concept of mortgages to my 6-year-old. He didn't totally get it, but the 13-year-old, we had a really in-depth conversation at the ski mountain this weekend on mortgages, and I had to share with them that no, the house is not free, and know that daddy has to pay for it, and so I think a lot of times it's not keeping your kids in the dark about money and really having grown-up conversations with them because they're ready to hear it.
Good. Thank you so much. That was great.
Absolutely.
We don't have a lot of time left, so if you want to get your book signed by David, go to LiveSigning.com and submit your questions. I'm not sure how many more we're going to take, but we're on the topic of mortgages, so let's.
And thanks for calling in.
And thank you for calling in. We're going to take and we're going to send you a book. I forgot. We're going to send you one of my books as well. So thank you. Okay, Sandra in, I hope I pronounced this right, Castia, California. Thank you, Sandra, for your question. I'd like to pay off my 30-year mortgage as soon as possible. I'm a single mother. Can you give me a breakdown in terms of extra payments required per year to, let's say, pay my mortgage off in 10 to 15 years? So I presume maybe she has a 30-year and she wants to do it faster. Some articles I've read seem to differ on a number of payments, and a mortgage calculator wound up confusing me. Sandra, she's a 911 operator. Thank you for your service. It's really important.
All right,
job.
So this is really an easy question. First of all, there are so many calculators online that it should be very, very simple for you to do this. You can go to literally Google and put in mortgage calculator. It's going to pop up, and the first one it's going to show you is from Bankrate. But Bankrate.com's got a great mortgage calculator. So does DinkyNet. DinkyNet has great mortgage calculators. But you can go to your bank and have them run an amortization schedule. If you make one extra payment a year on your mortgage, how many years did she say you should?
Well, she wants to move. She's got a 30-year mortgage, and she wants to pay it off in 10 to 15 years.
I mean, first thing you can do is go back to your mortgage company and say, what would I have to pay a year in order to pay the mortgage off in 15 years? They can run the numbers for you. Now, here's the key. When you make an extra payment, you can either make extra payments monthly, or you can make one extra payment a year. When you make the extra payment, I recommend you write it as a separate check, and then you have to check the mortgage to make sure that they actually reduce the principal. Because believe it or not, banks play games all the time where you make extra payments and they don't actually apply it to the principal. They hold it alongside in this little, I don't know what that account's called, but sometimes it doesn't get applied to your principal. So by having an extra check, you will know, you can track it. I think it's a great idea to pay your mortgage off early. People who pay their mortgages off early retire early. My experience is that people who pay their mortgages off early retire an average of 5 to 10 years sooner.
And I also want to compliment you that you're pointing out how important it is to really stay on top of the banks, because at the end of the day, you're the customer, it's your money. I point out in my book that you need to read the documents when you're signing a mortgage. Sometimes things get slipped in there, and we've heard of several banks recently that have opened accounts for, one specifically I'm not going to name, opened accounts that people didn't know about. So really read your statements, know what's going on, know that it's your money and that you need to read the documents, because if you sign them at the time you're closing your mortgage or whatever other banking activity you're doing, you're on the hook for them. No matter what the actual person selling it to you, they're selling it to you. They're not you necessarily your advisor, they're selling it to you. Whatever they say doesn't matter. I remember in the housing crisis interviewing somebody who had signed a home equity loan. She had put her home in jeopardy and she was losing her home ultimately. And she said, well, they just said I can always refinance it and whatever. But you know, they're selling you something, and it's your signature and it's your asset on the line. So you need to always be cognizant of what exactly you're signing.
You actually really do have to read the paperwork. You know, we had this conversation with my wife actually this week because we're doing another investment property, and she asked me a question about the attorney and what we had to look over, and I said, look, let me tell you something. I remember like it was yesterday, 10 years ago, doing a property downtown here, and the attorney signed. Everything goes to the attorney first. I've done the loan with my friends at the bank, and the attorney signed off the documents, told me he was ready to sign. I go back to the documents, and the loan terms were absolutely not the loan terms that we had negotiated. They had slipped in a 5-year locked rate instead of a 10-year locked rate, and nobody noticed it but me. And I noticed it, and we didn't close the loan, and they had to go and fix it. But if I hadn't caught it, they would have said, oh, no, that's what we agreed to. But I had all the paperwork saying, no, it wasn't. It was a 10-year fixed rate, and you've locked it for 5 years. So, yep, it's called buyer beware.
And that goes for car loans too.
Everything. Let me tell you something. Your best defense in life financially is an offensive financial education. That's why I look over here. I've written 12 books. There's 7 million books out. I don't know if I'm doing another financial book. This is the baby I've updated. I put this out here for you. I'm so glad you guys got copies of it, and I'm so grateful to be here to sign these for you. I can see they're telling me we got 2 minutes left. Are we taking more questions, or are we winding down?
We can do a couple more. I've been told we can extend by a few minutes if you want to say a few more minutes. We're kind of overwhelmed. We got a lot more questions than we expected. So thank you everyone for writing in your questions. So we're going to go into what's like an encore, I guess.
I love it, encore.
We'll do a couple extra questions. We'll go overtime. Let's go to David in Wadsworth, Ohio. He is a self-employed franchisee in the fitness industry. That's good, entrepreneurial. I find myself struggling to automate all of my bills as my income fluctuates and it isn't deposited consistently on the same days of the month. Any suggestions on how to answer this? So that's a good question for entrepreneurs or anyone that's self-employed, freelancers, because you don't always have a steady income. You're not getting the same amount of money every 2 weeks, and especially even the tax implications, because you could have, with an employer, they're taking the taxes out. It's complicated.
Yeah, so it's a great question. I'm an entrepreneur. It is harder to automate your financial life when you're an entrepreneur. There's no question, because you're not always getting a steady paycheck. So you have to set things up almost mentally automatic, but you have to have money swept in an automatic process. So when money gets deposited, the first place that money has to automatically get moved to is a separate account for taxes. When you look at why most entrepreneurs get hurt, it's because they don't sweep money aside for taxes. And they get to the end of the year and they've spent everything and they have no money for taxes. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I know, successful entrepreneurs, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year sometimes, and they get to the end of the year and they have no money. So you've got to sweep money aside into a special bucket for taxes. Then you still need to sweep money aside into a pay yourself first account. So like my wife's in real estate. The moment she got into real estate, I'm like, look, you're not going to have automatic income coming in. We're going to get you set up with an LLC. You're going to have business checking account, business credit cards. You're going to have a bookkeeper. The moment money comes in, we're going to have her automatically move it into the account for taxes, the account for your retirement account, the account for your credit card bills. We just set it up so it's actually happening, but it's true. It's not always automatic like on the first or the 15th. It's automatically happening once the money gets deposited, and then we just know it's being moved here, and it's being moved here, and it's being moved here. But that's what you do.
All right, last bonus question. All right, this is from Carter in East Grand Rapids, Michigan. East Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm a finance junkie, love easy reads like yours. It's important that it's an easy read because nobody wants to read a hard book. So this was written for that purpose. And many other finance authors. How do you suggest engaging and getting a spouse charged up to pay themselves first? This is from Carter Klingenberg. He's 33 years old and he's putting himself first for 9 years since reading your book in 2008 at age 24.
Wow, that's
this
awesome.
This is a longtime fan of yours.
So somebody started doing it at 24 and he's 33, you gotta be in great financial shape already.
Yeah, ripe old age of 33.
I'd show her the results, right? Like if she's not doing this, it's like, honey, look, here's what I've done. You need to do this too. I think that first, if you didn't get to hear the first person that called in, that was Tim, how he and his wife 14 years ago read Smart Couples Finish Rich and they got on the same page. I think for couples, it is critical to work on your financial goals as a team. And it's not just, yeah, you can talk about the pay yourself first goal, but really the goal is, where do we want our lives as a couple to be in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years? What are all of our dreams that we want to do? Sometimes the easiest way to get your spouse or your partner to work on a pay yourself first goal is to actually work on it for a dream account. Because what I've found is that sometimes people have a hard time, even though retirement's important, they have a hard time going out 10, 15, 20 years. But if you say to your partner or your wife, hey, let's go on this trip. I want to go on this trip in 3 years, whatever her dream trip is. Let's take part of our paycheck. Every time money comes in every 2 weeks, let's like move it into this account for that dream account, the Hawaii account, the kitchen account. That's how I've seen a lot of couples quickly get on the same page. They get excited about the dream account. So I'd try that move.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, David. This was great.
I
Thank you guys all for watching and
Bobby,
for all your
thank
questions.
you.
This was a little bit overwhelming. We got a lot of questions, but maybe David will get back to you. I don't know if he can do anything afterwards or write to you or follow him on Facebook
follow
and Twitter.
Me on Facebook. We'll answer some
author
questions.
David Bach and on Twitter, and he'll get to you guys.
Yeah, and
also
you got
your seminars.
Most of you probably are here because you actually get my emails. But if you go to davidbach.com, if you haven't signed up for our 3-bullet newsletter, there's an opt-in box right on davidbach.com. We send out now every week a 3-bullet newsletter. And again, I'm teaching a class at Create It Live. That class will be live on January 19th. Some of you may see this video after the fact, but tell your friends you'll be able to order books all month. I'll be signing books for even if you're not here right now, but if they get more orders this week, I'll sign some more books. Bobby, you're amazing. I totally appreciate you.
Thank you for having me here.
Hey, I appreciate you being here.
And you plugged me in your 3-bullet newsletter, so that was kind of awesome. So thank you so much. And follow me too at Bobby Rebell on Twitter.
Love it. You guys, thanks a lot. Have a great day. Really appreciate you staying up late with us. This has been super fun. Bye now.
Bye.
This is like an online book signing thing. So I'll be signing books and then I'll be answering questions.
We're gonna take 3 phone calls from some lucky winners.
So just like if you stood in line for hours and hours, this is your chance to have a second with Glenn and ask him questions.
We're hanging out again. We are live here at Franklin Entertainment in the office, kicking it. Hi, guys.
I'm going to sign as we go, and you can buy, and we will ship this right to you. And we're also answering questions. Do you have any questions over there?
How does one get on The Bachelor?
As a seasoned comedian, do you ever completely bomb anymore? And if so, how do you deal? Oh, I have the best bombing story.
What's the most satisfying snack to eat while wearing sweatpants?
Have you girls ever thought about writing a book all together about your teen mom journey?
What inspired you to write about the things you write about in this book?
What is it like partnering with your sister on a business?
What's the most amusing question you got as press secretary?
Sean from California, you're live.
I would love to know what your favorite story that you covered for Inside Edition is.
I'm wondering, what do you do for you personally to recharge and refresh yourself?
I wanted to know what it was like seeing the stash plan for the first time when it was like a book and you had a copy of it.
I think I started crying, actually.
You did. You got emotional.
I
had like pure happiness. It was a wonderful moment.
This is great. I hope I get his voicemail. I think this is actually the wrong number. But anyway, I was looking to buy a used Vespa. It was on Craigslist. It was a purple 1973 Vespa. It was missing the seat.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Trump. You just made my year.
So thank you guys so much for being here. Enjoy the rest of your days. I hope all of you that asked so many questions get some sleep.
Good night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow night.
Thanks for tuning in, you guys. Bye.
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 Thank you for watching, folks.
Thank you, everyone. LiveSigning.com.
Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.
I believe this is as close to a hard rap as I'll ever get, and this is as close to doing home shopping as I'll ever be.
Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for coming. I'm going to go get drunk.
Is that how we end it? I spilled water. I'm losing my voice. Mwah.
Are we selling books, by the way? Good.